So give us an idea. Set the scene. How is Germany receiving the NFL for the first time ever in a game that counts?
Well, to give you some idea, Mike, let's look at the front page of the biggest newspaper in Munich this morning. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that it means football fever. I'm not positive, but here's what Germans woke up to this morning with Tom Brady staring at him. And look, I think what is happening in this country, Mike, is Jim Tomsula, the former 49ers coach, he coaches a European League football team in Dusseldorf in Germany. And he was telling me people are going to cry about this game. That's how long they've been waiting for the NFL to play here. And not just the NFL, but, you know, Tom Brady is coming here. And I think that there is a vision of Brady as sort of, you know, a mythic figure to so many people who love football in Germany. As somebody told me here, that, you know, it's like when the Beatles came to America, Brady coming to Germany. So there's that. But the other thing that you see around the city, Mike, is a bunch of pop-up shops, you know, with a lot of gear about all these teams. There's a plaza here that has every football helmet, every football team's helmet, all 32 teams. And you just see a bunch of people walking around with Seahawks stuff. And yeah, here it is. It's just, it's everywhere. And last night at that Hofbrau house, it was so insane. All the NFL Network people were over there, and Steve Mariucci was dressed as a German guy from the country, you know, with the shorts on and the suspenders and the white shirt and the funny fedora. So he's gotten in the act too. So it's a fun scene. And for people who really have never seen a real football game here, I think there's great anticipation for it.
Peter, what is the Germans' knowledge of football? Do they understand the game? I mean, we see a lot of those London games, people wearing the different jerseys and everything of different teams, but sometimes they'll be screaming and yelling for punts, you know, which you wouldn't do in the United States. What's their knowledge of the game?
I think really it's quite good. Shireen, if you think back 2 generations to when the World League of American Football formed, and by the way, the Seahawks are practicing right behind me. I'm at the Bayern Munich training grounds in just a neighborhood in Munich, and the Seahawks have just started their Friday practice. But I think because all of the people in Germany have been used to seeing American football for the last 33 years, and they've had, whether it be the World League or now it's called, I think, the European Football League. There are teams all over this country. Flag football has gotten really big. So I think you're going to see them. And again, who knows who comes to this game? Shireen, a lot of times at the Super Bowl, you don't hear the same kind of stuff that you'd normally hear at a regular game because it's so, you know, there's so many people who've paid a lot of money to get the tickets and to see this game. So I'm not sure what is going to manifest itself, you know, in this game on Sunday, but they do know their football.
Peter, when this game was announced, Seahawks, Buccaneers, Tom Brady either had unretired or was about to, and Russell Wilson was gone. And, you know, it had a vibe like this is a Buccaneers romp. This is the Globetrotters against the Washington Generals, although the tables are turning now. The Seahawks are the better team. What's your read on this one, though, when you consider it's been plucked out of the United States and dropped in a setting that's going to feel like a Super Bowl, which probably gives Tom Brady a little bit of an edge because he knows a thing or two about playing in that type of an atmosphere?
Yeah, I think, Mike, that what's so interesting about the game itself is the reason that the NFL stopped playing preseason games overseas and decided to play only regular season games overseas is because what you're going to see on Sunday. This game is hugely important. First of all, to Seattle to try to stay on top, you know, of a very competitive NFC West. And then for the Bucs, as crazy as it sounds, the division is there for them to grab. And so here's the problem. I don't even think it's a problem. But here's the situation. You have a bunch of fans who are coming to a game that is vitally important for both teams. And I think that'll just add to the fun and the competitiveness of it.
Peter, I've covered a couple of these international games. Mexico City, I did the first one there between the Cardinals. And I can't even remember who they played now at the time. Maybe the Rams. Oh, it was, yeah. And then I did the one game in London between the Cowboys and Jaguars. And they all seem to have a different feel to them when you're over there. Bigger than a regular season game, more like a playoff game. I don't know, quite to the level of a Super Bowl. Do you get that sense? How many of these international games have you covered? And do you get that sense that this game is going to be the same? It's going to have more of a playoff feel than a regular season feel.
Shireen, you're absolutely right. Pete Carroll yesterday, when I was talking to him, he said, it really has the feel of a college bowl game. More important than a regular season game for sure. And with the pageantry and all the stuff, I think the way that Carroll described it, like he told me, he said this, and he said it, he was very serious about it. He said it's an honor to play in this game, to introduce, a regular season game, a real NFL game to the people who are so rabid about this sport, to Germans for the first time. And, I find it very interesting that the Seahawks had to travel 9 hours and 42 minutes on an airplane, 5,200 miles in the middle of a season after playing a road game on Sunday in Arizona. And so they come home and then they're practically just getting ready to play this game. But I can tell, I've known Pete Carroll for a long time. He can be a little bit off the record and he can give you the little smirk or the little eyebrow raise. None of that yesterday. He is genuinely excited and happy to be in this game, to sort of preach the gospel of American football to people in Germany.
One reason he's happy now is that things have worked out pretty well for him in the Seahawks post Russell Wilson. They trade him to the Broncos. They go with Geno Smith, who has been phenomenal. We've been talking about, is he comeback player of the year? Is he possibly MVP? He's something. He deserves some piece of hardware for what he's doing this year. Yeah. What's your take on why Geno Smith has been so good this season?
Mike, I asked him about it a couple of weeks ago, and I thought he said it absolutely perfectly. Those 8 years that he mostly didn't play, he didn't punch the clock. Every year, with every coach, with every quarterback who was in front of him. Like, he was telling me stories of what he learned from Eli Manning and what he has learned from every quarterback who played above him. Like, texting with Russell Wilson at 5 o'clock in the morning and just getting ready to go. Hey, it's a championship day. Let's go. And treating every day like he was a player, not like he was a backup. And that, to me, you know what, Mike? And I said this to him. I said, you're going to be a great beacon for all players who sit on the bench for a long time. And doesn't it just sound ridiculous when you think about it? Just think about this, Mike. It sounds a little ridiculous when in the middle of his second year, people are talking about Zach Wilson as a bust. And they're wondering, geez, what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence? Well, it takes a while to learn this position. And the other thing about Geno Smith, and he said this to me, Mike, you'll probably remember this. Obviously, a decade ago, when Geno Smith was the quarterback at West Virginia, you look back, he was very accurate. He was a estimated like 70% passer at West Virginia. So now when he leads the NFL sort of at mid-season in all these categories, and he's been so accurate, that is not even remotely a surprise to him. And one other thing, I do think that there is something to Geno Smith essentially running Shane Waldron's offense. He's not one of these guys who changes a lot of stuff. He believes in the offense. He told me it's a lot like the offense I played in West Virginia. There's a lot on the quarterback in terms of decision-making. and mobility and being able to throw on the run. And the one last thing I would say, and I know this gets into the whole Russell Wilson thing, I think this goes back to Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe. Why late in 2001 did Bill Belichick, with a healthy Drew Bledsoe, stay with Tom Brady? Because Tom Brady ran the offense that the Patriots practiced all week. And he didn't change a lot of things at the line. He didn't. And look, Drew Bledsoe wasn't doing it to be obnoxious. He was doing it because he thought these plays, changing the plays, gave him the best chance. And I think Belichick wanted a quarterback who said, we're going to run what we practiced all week. It's the exact same thing that Geno Smith does with the Shane Waldron offense.
It's been really fun to watch Geno Smith, and he looks like he's had a lot of fun this season, Peter. But on the other side, it doesn't look like Tom Brady, to me, has had a whole lot of fun this season. I mean, he just looks dour and yelling at his offensive line and doing all those things. But he had the one drive at the end of that game last week, and he went in the press conference, and that's the first time this season I think I've seen him where he looked like he was having fun. Can one drive, one victory turn a team around, and do you see that with the Buccaneers and Tom Brady?
You know, Shireen, I don't. I just think Tom Brady, look, and Cade Otton, the guy, the tight end who caught the first long seam route, he dove for it up the left seam for 28 yards. And then obviously he caught the little flare out to the right for the winning touchdown pass in that game. It would be one thing if he had 6 Cade Ottons, but he doesn't. He's got Leonard Fournette, who's been really disappointing. He's got an offensive line that makes him throw the ball fast on almost every dropback. People are saying, well, you know, Brady's not getting hit. He's not taking any punishment. He's throwing the ball faster than probably he ever has in his career. He's not able to let plays develop because of, you know, the line is just not giving him enough time. And Shireen, I agree with you. Until after the game on Sunday, Brady looked pretty miserable a lot this year. But I also think, look, none of us know what is going on deep down inside in his brain, but I cannot imagine that his divorce is a non-factor in this. You know, people take their private lives to work all the time in all aspects of life and in business. And this has got to be a tumultuous, very emotional year for him. And so I think those combinations of factors really are a big part of why what has happened to him is happening.
Peter, before we let you go, I have to know, because you've been covering the NFL for nearly 40 years now. You've been aware of it for years beyond that. You've seen a lot of things. This move on Monday that the Colts made to fire Frank Reich and pluck Jeff Saturday out of nowhere to be the head coach, where does it rank among nutty in-season decisions made by a team? Not some external thing that was forced on a team, but a self-inflicted or self-originating decision this crazy. Where does it rank?
You know, I was thinking of it, Mike. You know, I remember when the Baltimore Colts moved to Indianapolis in March, in a snowstorm in March of 1984. And I said, well, this has to be the craziest thing that's happened in season to them. But then Stephen Holder was on my podcast this week, a longtime Colts beat writer, and he said, well, wait a second. Andrew Luck retired after a preseason game at 10 o'clock at night. You know, he shocked the world. And so that has to be part of it. But Mike, just in terms of absolutely unexpected slaps in the face, that's got to be a top 5 weird thing that has ever happened, you know, in an in-season move by a team, at least that I've seen. And the more I've talked to people about it, especially people in Indianapolis, people who know Jeff Saturday, I think they get the very, very strong impression that obviously Jim Irsay is impulsive. And he was just really tired of what he was seeing. And look, Mike, we've talked about this, and I've talked about this with a lot of people. For Jim Irsay, who's not independently wealthy, he gets his wealth from this team. And of course, he's got a lot of money. But this isn't like the owners of the Broncos or the Panthers, where They have billions. Okay. Jim Irsay basically had to say, I'm so upset about what I'm seeing with my team that I'm going to eat $30 million in Frank Reich's contract or whatever it is, however much he's owed. But he's owed for 4.5 years. He's got to be making 6 or 7 million minimum. And so that to me is part of the shock of this, to me, that Jim Irsay chooses to eat that money. But hey, Jeff Saturday, he came out swinging though yesterday, didn't he? And he basically said, I'm not afraid. I'm going to give this all I got. And if at the end of the year I stink and we don't win any games, I'll move on. But don't you get the feeling, Mike? Don't you get the feeling that Jim Irsay, Jeff Saturday is going to have to be almost a debacle to not get this job? I think Jim Irsay wants him to succeed. And whatever the goalposts are, it's not that Jim Irsay is going to move the goalposts if they're 1-7 or whatever, however many games they have left. But I do think he really wants Jeff Saturday to be the head coach of this team in 24, 23 and beyond.
I agree with you 100%. He's going to find whatever silver lining he can, and that'll be the justification for hiring Jeff Saturday, and I think it's going to happen. Peter, thank you so much for some of your time. Enjoy your time in Germany. Safe travels, and we'll see you next Friday. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.